You keep forgetting how to use the damn.
We're going live right now, and I would say we should be on here right about now. There we are. We're live. Yeah. We're going.
There we are, and I just hit that mute, so perfect. Yeah, we're sort of getting this thing figured out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's slowly coming together, right? Getting it sussed. Looks like we've got a few folks online with us.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Who's joining us?
Let's see what we got there.
Okay. We had a question come through on the WhatsApp from Frank. Hey, Andrew, how are you? Good to have you with us. Frank's question was, he was looking at some of my How to Become an MVP series.
Is Frank on yet?
I don't know, but I don't know. No, Frank might not have joined us. But anyhow, his question was, Mark, do you still play PUBG?
What the hell is that?
So one of my T-shirts that I was wearing was PUBG, and it's basically like what's called a battle royale, last man standing. Yeah, Frank's on, and yeah, no, I don't play on Xbox. I don't have Xbox. I won an Xbox from Microsoft once, and I sold it straight away on eBay, so it was gone.
Needed some beer money.
Well, the thing is that if I have something like that in my house, right, I just know I can't help myself. I'll be playing it more than I should be playing it.
That's why I stay away from them too. I'm a little concerned. I remember years ago playing a game, and suddenly you look up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm still playing a stupid game, and I thought, you know what, I can't.
It, right?
I can't do this.
So for me, this is where I play PUBG. So this is the game here that we're talking about. That basically 99 people enter an arena, only one person can survive, or maybe your teammates as well.
How far have you made it?
You land with nothing. You have to jump in there and find all your own weaponry, vehicles, everything. And ultimately, you know, if you're in a team of 4, and you all get dropped at different parts on this island, and it's all a race to the center, and the walls keep coming in. So if you stay outside the battle zone, you just get fried. And the field gets closer, so it drives everybody to the central point on the map. So you have to engage at some point and either get shot or be shot. And yeah, I love it. But I haven't even played it this year.
They should introduce that concept to the Power Platform development team.
Oh, what are you thinking?
Yeah. You know, walls are closing in to get shit finished, or they get fried. Find your own weaponry. So have you? How far have you made it in the game?
I've got my chicken dinner.
I don't know what that means, but I'm sure the other game.
Winner winner chicken dinner means that you were the last man standing.
Ah, okay. Congratulations. So you were you playing in the kiddie section or something?
Yeah, the kids section, exactly. Exactly. I'm definitely like, honestly, I watch these other guys, like I play two-handed. When I watch my son play, he plays multi-fingered two-handed, and I'm just like, fuck.
He'll
just wastes me totally.
Yeah. I remember trying to play what's Microsoft's their big game with the
oh, you mean the futuristic one, the sci-fi? What's his name?
Yeah, big famous game. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, what was his name? What was his name? You know, someone's going to chime in on the chat there.
Halo. The Halo. Huh? Halo.
That's it.
I remember trying to play that way back when, but you know, I'd keep appearing on this thing, and the second I appeared, I'd be shot. I mean, I couldn't even move. I couldn't do anything because as soon as I'd show up, I'd be shot. You know, some idiot having fun with the newbies.
See, I used to play a game. This is way back, like when I was way younger, called Days of Defeat, or DOD, D-O-D, and it was it was a Half-Life mod, so it was based on the Half-Life platform, and I used to have 2 computers play online, you know, with 2 computers playing as in 2 personas in the game. And then my brother-in-law would be in the other room, and he would be on 2 computers and 2 personas in the room. And this is when online gaming was, you know, becoming quite popular. And how bad is this? So here we are in New Zealand. We would jump on servers in Germany, right? Because this is a World War II battle scene, right? And so the Germans will be on there literally, you know, representing the Nazi side, and we would be the allies, right? And we'd all have our audio hooked up and stuff. And so we would go and outside the spawn area, which is where you're saying you're landing and you're just getting picked off.
Right.
Often you would spawn in these cases inside a room. And if you went and just held the door closed on the room by standing in front of it, they couldn't get out. And so they're all spawning into this room massively, you know. By that time, we would run our other guys down all into snipe positions or mount a machine gun, you know, and firing shot at that door. And then one of us would just stand aside, out they'd come, and you just mow them all down, eh? They would go nuts around how they'd found our IP. They were going to come and, you know, and like we knew we were on the other side of the world. So like,
oh yeah, yeah.
But man, honestly, the nights I spent playing that, well, the two of us would spend playing that was just ridiculous. It was fun.
Yeah. Imagine what you could have done with that time if you had it back.
It's life, right?
That's life. So Microsoft, what's
we got some more MVPs even joining us today on the call.
Nice. Well, we got someone who's become an MVP since we started.
Yeah, the Diver is now, you know, full on MVP. Great to see. Nice.
Very nice. Very nice. Well deserved.
Yeah. In fact,
we skipped last week. You had a conflict last week, and I was thinking about doing a show by myself or doing something, but then I don't know. I just said fuck it. So we skipped a week. And frankly, that one we had skipped a month before that one. So we're starting to ramp ourselves back up slowly to regular.
And we're going to make a change, right? We just discussed we're going to move it one day earlier, same time, one day earlier.
Yep, same time. So Tuesday at 4 Eastern instead of Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's just Wednesday's shown up in a bad spot a few too many times. So we're going to try Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I wrote a post today on the restricted entities because as you know, I reach out to Microsoft through the channels that you and I have to complain about various things, and sometimes they give me answers that are perfectly acceptable, and I go on, and sometimes they give me answers I don't like. And if they give me answers I don't like, and I don't feel like they're going to give me one that I do like, then I tend to kind of write stuff about it and see if I can get a few more people to jump on the bandwagon of liking or not liking these answers.
Yeah. So what's this one about restricted entities in?
So for anybody who's not familiar with restricted entities, either listening in or who will be listening in, there's this concept that Microsoft created for building PowerApps. And this is particularly if you're building PowerApps on a Dynamics 365 instance. If you're not, it's irrelevant because the entities don't exist. But when you create a Dynamics 365 instance, there's a load of entities that come and get installed on that CDS with that first party stuff.
Correct.
You can also build,
as an example, the case entity, right? The way entitlements work.
Yep. Case entity is a good example.
Yeah.
But you can also build PowerApps on that same instance and subject to the same rules as the other ones, right? I could build a Power App for a particular use case. I could potentially even license it on a $10 app pass, even though it's sitting on a D365 instance, provided I don't use any of what they're calling the restricted entities, and cases is a good example.
Yeah. So
I can build a Power App. I can't use cases and save money. I can use cases in my Power App, but I can't save money. I still have to be fully licensed for something that uses cases. And the reason behind this move on them is really they need to protect first party apps. I mean, they've got to protect them from cannibalization, and I get that. I mean, they can't have suddenly everybody drop from a $95 license to a $10 pass. That would be devastating for the whole platform. We need people buying and using the full first party apps that have the need for the full first party app stuff. So I think there was some concern, and probably because of ISVs like me that were building simpler sales apps. But, I think that created some concern that, we need to make sure we got to protect this house, right? We got to protect this house. And this was the idea. And I think I put in the blog that this was the half-baked, lazy approach to solving this problem. Was let's just label some of these entities as restricted. Can't use them.
Yeah, and they're purely a legal construct, right? They're not a technical construct.
They will be. They will be. And we know we've got license enforcement. The machine that's being built for license enforcement for team member is the machine that is going to solve everything for all of Microsoft's Dynamics licensing issues, as well as potentially ISV licensing issues. We'll be able to plug into that same thing. And I don't see any reason why using that same construct, they couldn't lock down that, hey, you have a restricted entity in your app and you only have a PowerApps license, so you can't use this app.
Yeah.
The same machine they're building to solve that could potentially be used to solve a bunch of these problems. So, you know, I would assume, and even today, which I noticed, which is, I don't know how long ago this arrived, if you go try and pull in a restricted entity into your app, it'll say right up at the top, it'll give you a little warning that, hey, this entity is restricted. Make sure you understand, you know, the use of it.
Yeah.
The challenge here, in my mind, is we're restricting the wrong thing. We're restricting a table and some attributes. A table and attributes that I could replicate right next to theirs in about 20 minutes. They haven't really protected anything at all. I mean, they haven't kept me from using a case entity. They've just kept me from using theirs.
Yeah.
And if I don't have a need for all of their other logic on their case entity, then I don't really need theirs. The problem is the customer who you built a custom case entity for that wants to give that to some of their users. And maybe some of their other users are going to use the full customer service app with Microsoft's case entity. Obviously, that's not going to work. Now we got two of them in there that aren't synchronized. Yeah. Or the customer starts with a Power App with a custom case entity that later on decides, you know what, I want to move now to customer service because I appreciate the value of all of this Microsoft IP and logic behind it, not the attribute, not the table, but the logic that they've built that I can only get with that license. I want that now. Well, now we're looking at having to migrate the data from my custom case entity over to the out-of-the-box one. It's an unnecessary hurdle for that customer. If I was able to build on that case entity in the first place, all I'd really be looking at is a license swap. The reason they would move to the first party app is the same. I want the additional logic, the additional goodness of the first party app. We just created an unnecessary hurdle.
Yeah.
To a point to where I could see some customers that have been using a custom version of an out-of-the-box entity for a long time saying, you know what, this is too much work. We're going to stay on the $10 app instead of upgrade to the $95 app.
Yeah.
Because it's too much of a hassle, which sounds like it's a complete backfire for what Microsoft would like to have happen. You know, they're creating blockers for their own motions.
But one of the conflicts I've always had when the phraseology of the common data model came out, right?
Is the word common?
The idea, as I understand, the common data model is that it's a open source, right? Data model, which is how two entities relate to each other in its simplest form, right? Now, I think that I'm fine with them having restricted entities if they've got some smart logic in their, in the business logic around that entity. So for example, the way entitlements work on a case entity, there's some logic there, smart, restrict it, knock your socks off. Exactly. But the table, ultimately the data model, right, should be free and open for everybody. So ISVs can build on it. Everything stays interoperable then. Sure, lock down your logic, your business logic that's unique, not wanting to touch that. But at the end of the day, if I wanted to put the description of a case in an entity called case, it should be the same that we all call case, right? It should be that same table. You know, you might control the logic around other things, as I say, like an entitlement and the relationships around that, own that, that's fine. But definitely any kind of core entities, whether they be in the sales side, whether they be in customer service, field service, etc., should definitely be available to everybody in a fashion that can easily be, basically dropped into a CDS instance, almost like a template of the database structure.
Yep.
Why
Yep.
not?
I think what they need to be doing, as you said, is they need to be locking the valuable part of their app, which is not the data model. They need to lock everything out. The value is in everything else. It's not in the table itself.
Not the data model. It's the
They need to
data
lock
logic.
the things. They're just making unnecessary work for people.
Yeah.
When this became an issue, if you recall, when they first launched this stuff, there was written in the documentation, they didn't have restricted entities. Instead, what they said was that you cannot replicate the functionality of our first party apps.
Right.
Well, that was pretty broad, and that was certainly going to kill me because that's exactly what we do to a much lesser degree. Essentially saying you could not build a case table, you could not build case management on a Power App at all, because that would be replicating. Well, they backed off of that. Ultimately, they took it out. Charles had told me long before they took it out that wasn't going to be around, and that we kind of continued down our path and had many people asking me, wait a minute, Steve's doing it. How is Steve building this stuff he's not allowed to? Because I knew that rule was going to be folding up, and it ultimately did. Yeah. But when they folded up that rule, they replaced it with this idea of restricted entities.
Right.
And that's what's created this problem now. It's okay, I can replicate, but I can't use. So you're forcing me to replicate. And that's what leads to all these challenges that we're going to see. And now we know that they announced, actually Charles said it publicly on my podcast back in September, that they're going to be adding some additional restricted entities. Well, that was September. Where are we at now? We're in February. We still don't have that list of the additional restricted entities. I don't know when we're going to get that list. Actually, I've been told, but I can't say, but it's, we need that list. We need to know, because today there are customers out there building apps.
I'm just looking here. Restricted entities requiring Dynamics 365 license. This was published on the 1st of the 5th, 2018. And it has a list, restricted entities for create, update, and delete operations. It has that list.
Yeah, but that's the old list. That does not include.
This article is obsolete.
That article is old. That's what it was. I mean, it may have been updated here and there, but they haven't.
Here's the important notice at the top. This topic is out of date and will be updated soon to reflect the latest licensing change that are applicable October 1, 2019. For latest information on licensing requirements, go and read a 150-page manual called a licensing guide.
However, if you go and read that 150-page manual, they still don't discuss these additional restricted entities that are coming. And I know that they're not out yet, because in talking to the team, they're still making decisions around what those things might be. But the risk right now is you've got customers out there that are building apps utilizing entities that are not restricted as of today, avoiding the ones that are restricted, sure, but working within those bounds of, okay, I built this thing and I didn't use any restricted entities, and then suddenly they're going to announce later, after this customer has stood up running using mission critical application on a low dollar license, because maybe they wouldn't have built it at all if it was going to be $95 a month per user, but they built it because they could do it for 10 or 40, so they built that app. It made economic sense at that point. And then Microsoft is going to announce, oh, here's the list of new restricted entities, and boom, they look in their app and they got one or two of those restricted entities. Because the goalposts got moved, or the boundary lines, the out of bounds markers got moved after the game started. That's going to be a problem. I think it's going to be a problem. I guess it depends on how many people are building apps. I think that a lot of people that are building apps out there, particularly at enterprise customers, have no idea that, you built an app that your users could actually utilize with a $10 pass.
Yeah.
I think they have no clue. They didn't build it for that reason. They built it, for all the other reasons of building a role-specific app. They've got that customer on enterprise plan or something like that, because that's what they were sold in their EA. Nobody there's even thinking. So there's a lot of people that are building apps. In their case, they're perfectly fine using any entity they want, right? They're already paying the full license for everybody. it's that small and mid-market customer, I think, that'll be more interested in, hey, wait a minute, let's see if we can reduce some license cost. And
which is not really even the market that Microsoft seem to be targeting, right? It's not like it's going to affect their numbers massively to penalize that group.
you know, I don't know. I think that, you know, they want, obviously, when you hear them talk about PowerApps and you hear them put up on stage people that have done big things with PowerApps, it's enterprise customers, big enterprise customers that have, you know, deployed a center of excellence or something and have got, you know, 1,000 people in their organization building apps. That seems to be at least what they're showcasing to the world for PowerApps. Look how PowerApps succeeds. Yeah, you don't see them showing the picture very often of the small business or the medium-sized business and how they're using it. It's all these great big ass businesses and how they're using it. So clearly they'd like to have more of those.
Yeah.
But you know, until they have more of those, I think still the largest share of Microsoft's customer base today is small business. It was forever. This never became for wanting to be an enterprise product forever. They hadn't made many strides on that until more recently, but I still think that the largest number of instances out there belong to SMB. Probably
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Those they don't get the but they do call out the very big enterprise wins that they make.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Pretty
vocally. You know, my tendency would be to think that they are way more in the enterprise space, but perhaps you're right that it's that mid-market or SMB market.
I think that tendency to think enterprise is probably because of how they're positioning the product to look, here's an enterprise product, look at our enterprise customers on this enterprise product.
Yeah.
You know, so if that's all you hear about, you would think, wow, is this even okay for SMB? But SMB, I think, still is the largest part of the business. I don't think necessarily want it to be, but it is, you know.
Yeah, interesting. Talking about licenses, you know, I've gone through the process recently of setting up Test Drive and then having Test Drive pulled down and going, how can I run a Test Drive environment, which you got to really have a minimum of 2 licenses, one for the admin and one for whoever's going to be on the test drive for that period of time. And
at least one. Yeah.
At least one, right? Probably 3 really, if you're going to balance.
It depends on how popular, because, you know, that license gets consumed for the period of time that you've given that user, whether they're using it or not, it's assigned to them. And then there's a deprovisioning. So it could be some time that another user coming into your test drive wouldn't be able to get access. They'll get an email maybe 4 hours later say, oh, hey, you got access now, because you're kind of recycling that single license. So there's advantages to having potentially more than one license.
Exactly. So here's the rub. So our app is a standalone app, right? It's a Power App.
Yep.
Right? It doesn't require any dependency on Dynamics whatsoever. It's a Power App.
Yep.
And on the AppSource portal, you can list it as a Power App.
Yep.
But you cannot use Test Drive with a Power App. You have to have Dynamics 365. Originally, we're told we needed an enterprise version of it to run Test Drive. No logical reason, apart from what I can work out, that they can't, the AppSource is set up to have a dependency on the Dynamics licensing. The Power Platforms come about and they've not upgraded the engineering behind it.
Yep.
So here we are having to outlay, you know, like there's no internal user right CALs or anything for this. We're having to use money to actually provide these environments on a environment that actually we don't need.
No, but for your users, you know, you're going to funnel them straight to your app, which your app will operate the same regardless of whether it's on naked CDS or on top of Dynamics CDS. Your app will be the same.
But we want to funnel them to just a naked CDS version, because then it removes all the bullshit of, you know, the legacy stuff that's in Dynamics that's just not needed.
Yeah.
You know, it creates noise. When you demo, right? When I demo, I want to create the least noisiest interfaces possible, right? I don't want all the bells and whistles. I want to have as much on my interface that closes a sale. I don't want 15,000 features that mean nothing. And at the moment, if you open up any of the, like let's say you took Dynamics sales, there's a whole bunch of stuff that lights up there that it's not going to sell the product. So I don't want it in my demo.
Well, it's not in your demo.
That's noise.
Right. So when you set up, so our AppSource test drives are all having, as you say, to run on a Dynamics 365 instance, even though our solution that sits on top of them could run on naked CDS. So it could run on either. But when we set up the AppSource, they're directed directly to our app, right? The security role they're given gives them access to our app. So when they launch a test drive, they're just taking to my app. They don't see the enterprise. They don't see anything.
No. So therefore, why would you want to license all that other stuff when you're not even exposing any of it?
Oh, you're having to license it for your test drive. Yes. But from a customer standpoint, they're going to see the same app. They won't be seeing all the clutter of the sales app or all that stuff. They'll still be seeing the same app, but yeah, you're having to pay a higher license and put it on a bigger engine that it needs to run on because they just haven't finished that plumbing.
Yeah.
I mean, they recently lit up that checkbox. The checkbox says PowerApps. That only showed up a few months ago.
Exactly. Yeah. It's interesting how many apps are already listed under PowerApps since that checkbox has gone in, because there's like over 100 and something now up there.
Yeah.
So
I have noticed a cleansing though. I have noticed a cleansing in there, which I've been complaining about. There's fewer apps significantly than what there were before. So they're definitely going through finally and getting rid of some of those. I was at that technical conference here not that long ago and complaining about it again to Googs, and he's like, "Yep, we're working on it." I'm thinking, why are we still working on this? I mean, this thing should have been done a long time ago. We're still working. I mean, they want to give every ISV the
it's pretty binary, isn't it? Either it's compliant or it's not.
That's my thinking. Either you passed a test, you passed solution check, or you didn't. You didn't, then you were not deleting you. We're going to unpublish you and go fix it. And if you don't want to go fix it, then we'll give you, a period of time. Then that's when you give them the grace period before you just remove it. But unpublish it today. Unpublish it now. But it's I don't know. So it's taken them a while, but I'm finally starting to see that number come down.
Is currently 2,228 Dynamics 365 apps in AppSource.
Yep.
And I find this quite funny because there's 2,915 apps in Office 365. Now,
so here's a statistic that I had heard that apps, the Dynamics 365 apps in AppSource that have gone through the validation process and are approved going to go forward was somewhere less than 1,000. So that would mean, based on the number you just gave, there's still 1,500 apps sitting in the AppSource that have not gone through the validation for the current platform, and frankly should just be unpublished.
Yeah.
But still 1,500 of them to unpublish, or they need to fix. If I'm an ISV, it's interesting because we're talking to an ISV now about doing some work with them. They have a pretty large solution that runs on top of Dynamics, but it doesn't use any of Dynamics. It's basically all XRM, marketed under their own name. People don't know or care what the platform is, but they've got it spun up on a partner hosted 8.2 on premise.
Yep.
Multi-tenanted out to, 1,000 customers, a pretty big thing. And they need to move it. they need to move it because 8.2 is deprecated. Customers are seeing all there's all sorts of features and stuff that are coming, and they need to take advantage. So they're going to have to go through this move of shifting from 8.2 on premise, all of their code, everything they've got to be able to run online. They got stored procedures. They got all sorts of stuff's going to have to be rewritten up. 8.2. How much of that stuff is deprecated? A ton of it. So solution checker is going to be a pretty key component in that process. And they also talked about potentially utilizing AppSource. In talking to the team about AppSource, that was originally launched as a discovery engine, supposedly. I mean, it didn't work very well as a discovery engine, but that was the purpose. Go to AppSource, do a search, find an app, click a button, and we'll shove it into your tenant.
Yeah.
If it's a trial, we'll shove it in. And if it's not, it doesn't matter. We're going to shove it in your tenant. It's up to the ISV to make this thing stop working or do licensing, or that's all on him. We're strictly discovery, and we'll shove it into your tenant. And they frankly weren't very good at that process. And not that they shove it in a tenant just fine. They weren't very good at was having people discover apps there.
Yeah.
But now with the revenue sharing for ISVs, right? And they're needing to. So one of the things I'll point this out. One of the things that I had talked to them about, because I had assumed, and I think I even had heard that at one point in the future they're going to stop side loading, no longer allow side loading.
Correct.
All right. So the later information I'm getting now is that they've decided that they're not going to do that. They're not going to block side loading. Instead, of course, even if you side load an application, you're still subject to pay them the revenue share, right? That doesn't get you, if you're an ISV, you have to share your revenue.
Yeah.
But they're not going to block the side loading. Instead, what they're trying to do is add enough stuff to AppSource and ISV Studio around analytics, around pushing updates, around DevOps, around
That you'll value it.
that you will want to go that way instead of side load because there's more value over there.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a little interesting, kind of a pivoting of the direction there. I mean, they were planning on doing that stuff anyway, but they were going to basically say this is the only door in now to a tenant through here. And now they're kind of saying, nope, you know what, we're going to keep that other door open, but we're going to make you want to go through this one.
Yeah.
So
now what I understand, and this is even from my chat with Satish the other day on my podcast, and he was the owner of AppSource, right, from its get-go.
Yep.
No longer.
Him and I were working on that in the early days.
Yeah. But what's interesting is that I think AppSource worked really, really, really well for Office 365.
It worked really well for Azure. Azure's the one that actually has done the best with AppSource, because that's IT folks looking for solutions, or they run on Microsoft. I'm gonna go right there. I'm gonna find solutions, and and probably Office 365 was coming in second. Dynamics. I think the apps that were moving through AppSource were widgets, mostly widgets, nothing big, a bunch of widgets. Mm-hmm. It kind of became a widget store, and so then what ends up happening, right, is you got all these offshore companies replicating widgets. You have 12 different widgets in AppSource that all do the same damn thing.
Yeah.
It just turned into a big pile of shit. So
yeah, I was surprised just looking at AppSource now. I'm interested in the sales section because that's where I'm working, and there's already 44 PowerApps that are listed under sales.
Yep. Are we in there?
Yep, you're in there, and there's 853 Dynamics 365 sales apps.
Yep.
It's mind blowing that there's that many sales related apps or add-ons for Dynamics. Theoretically, right? That's for Dynamics 365 sales.
Yeah,
that's what it's targeting. I don't think that's the case.
So our apps are showing up in both. Right?
Yep.
So we're in both. I mean, we're way down the page on Dynamics for some reason, which I don't understand, which I've actually reached out to the person running that to complain that I've kind of lost patience that we have a app that's been there a long, long time, longer than many of them that are in the store. Lots of good reviews, Microsoft certified, completely passed all the tests, and it shows up on fucking page 8. I have two other apps in there that are relatively new, that don't have any ratings at all, that show up higher than the one that I have with all the history and the ratings. It makes no sense at all.
Yeah. So is the algorithm truly is it an algorithm, or is it
a pile of shit?
Is it HCL that runs it?
HCL I know is part of the group that does the vetting and certifying.
Yeah.
I don't know who's actually running the switch.
Yeah. Perhaps it's more manual than what we think.
It could be. I was told by someone at one time that the filtering of like your company size and stuff like that doesn't do anything. Not activated. Just it doesn't do anything. And that the surfacing of apps in AppSource is based on one metric only: number of clicks.
Are you serious?
Number of clicks. The number of times somebody clicked on one of those little squares. That's the driver for getting to the top of the page. So, okay, fine. So I'm just going to go hire some offshore company to just click the hell out of my app and move up the top of the page. It's
easier than that, as in you don't have to, it doesn't take much to set up a macro to do that.
Yeah. And that's probably how all these ones have gotten themselves up there, because that's the only metric, and it's a stupid metric.
What, Power Automate, what's that new feature that came out around UI engaging?
Yeah, right. UI
Perhaps there's a little challenge there. Can someone come up with a AppSource clicker that share among friends and see if we can put in the AppSource URL that we want to have click like nuts?
Yeah. And
let's see if we can play with if it is an algorithm, if that is the only thing, can we drive up some results? Yeah,
and I'd say we should build that as a Power App and then put that Power App up in AppSource.
Create a recursive loop. I love this. I love this.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, somebody must be able to do that for us, right? They must be able to build us a little. What is that technology called that they announced back in October?
Was it UI flows?
Is it UI flows, or wasn't there some other? It's called P something or other. This 3-letter acronym again.
I thought it was
like it's the method
for using legacy, for reading from a legacy app with
yeah.
I thought it was UI flows, but maybe not.
Yeah, UI flows. Perhaps that's what it is. But come on, somebody should be able to allow us to test the systems. And if you're watching this on playback, don't be shy. You know how to get hold of us, LinkedIn Messenger.
Yeah.
And we'll have a conversation around whether this is possible.
Yeah. Basically, we just want you to build that app, give it to us, and then forget about
it. We'll tell you the results.
Yeah. We'll get somebody like Andrew build it and throw it out on open source.
Yeah. So
the thing that's frustrating is this is not new. The algorithm or finding apps on AppSource has been a problem since it launched.
Mm-hmm.
That simple problem has never been fixed. Even with all of the marketplaces that exist out there, that everybody has, that all function properly, Microsoft cannot seem to get it right with AppSource, and frankly has not even tried.
Yeah.
And I just talked about all this other effort they're investing into ISV Studio, deployment tools. And you know what? How about you go fix the first fucking problem first? Because without AppSource properly surfacing apps, all this other shit is a waste of time. It's like they're fixing the back end stuff before they fix the stuff up on the front that doesn't work. Yeah, well, Bing at least fucking works.
It doesn't anywhere else outside the US. Nobody uses Bing outside the US. It's a US search engine only, mate.
Yeah, they need that thing. That AppSource needs some love. Well, and you have mentioned, I think, several times about just the UI of AppSource being just a crap UI, a crap algorithm. It was something that, and I don't mean to throw this on Satish. I mean, he was tossed this project to get something launched, and they launched what I think was probably a minimum viable product, and never touched it again. They never finished it.
You know what? That's exactly what it is. You're 100% right. It's an MVP.
Yeah.
Because it has never had any UI change in since it got launched all that time ago.
No. Add a checkbox. PowerApps. There you go.
There's far out. Yeah, checkbox PowerApps. That's valid. That is nuts. I hadn't thought about it like that. Just going on, like we had some comments on the last live stream from people watching playback around accelerators. And, Steve, you and I have just recently chatted about this. I don't know why they don't do accelerators from the simple point of creating data models for industries and nothing else. Create the data schema. That's it. Nothing else. Don't put any logic. Don't put any of your interpretation of UI or anything like that. Just provide a common language for how we store data, and leave the rest up to whoever wants to build on it from there.
Yeah, you know, they started on that path, and I think like they start on a lot of paths with a good idea. I mean, it was, if we can, as a company, Microsoft, come up with a data schema for healthcare that partners could use, SIs could use, everybody could kind of tap into, like they do, for example, our lead or opportunity entity in our sales app, and extend from there. How much smoother would everything be that everybody's using the same entities, you know, for stuff? You know, we don't have 12 different versions of the freaking contact entity because everybody uses the same one. But when you get into some of these industries, every ISV is bringing in, you know, and you've got 3 different ISVs installed in your healthcare organization, and they brought in 3 different entities for what in the business is really the same thing. So there's wisdom and virtue in a common data model for these industries. It was quite a process, and I'm talking about at the attribute, the entity and attribute level. There was quite an involved process internally with Microsoft, with large ISVs that were in some of those spaces, with large customers that were in some of those spaces, even some collaboration with competitors that were in some of those spaces, and then a committee that needed to vet every single one of these things. Because, you know, when you think about, we're going to build this common data model, it should be as permanent as the lead entity. I mean, the lead entity existed since the product launched, right? I mean, you got to think long term. And they had a whole process, committee, voting, you know, big battled arguments over the field name. I mean, stuff like that to finally get something approved. Lots of value there, lots of wisdom in that idea. But then let's take this data model now, because maybe customers won't understand it, and let's go build some apps on it as sample apps, which is, you know, kind of crapped it all up and confused customers and made a mess out of things. You know, all we really want is the data model. I agree. Just give us a data model. Let us as ISVs, let customers and let SIs utilize it the same way they utilize everything else.
And they can build the sample apps and show off their particular thing as a sample app, but the underlying piece would still be the correct data model. I think Frank's having a poke there. They need to do more CDS mining, and that's from a conversation last year around how their T's and C's allowed them to use your data model in future developments that they do. That's not considered IP, which I don't know.
Unless it's a restricted entity. Now suddenly it's IP. When it's our entity, it's open. You know, it's open. But if it's a restricted entity, no, that's valuable. That's a valuable thing.
Interesting, eh? I mean, you know, 7,000 engineers or 7,000 people at least work now in James Phillips's org, right? That's a big number.
So I'd heard it's getting to that number. Yes.
So if I'm pretty sure that Hayden on the podcast he did with me in January said it was 7,000.
Hayden's a salesman. I think I heard it was closer to 6 right now, but okay. A salesman's version of 6,000 is 7,000.
Okay. I love it. So 1,500, right? When Phillips came in, right, to what it is now, there's a lot of moving parts in that world.
There's a lot. And you would think with that many people, they would take a whole big chunk of them and assign them to finishing shit. You know? Everybody wants to build new stuff, but nobody wants to finish anything. So to be fair, Matt told me recently that they do have that motion in place going on. There are teams, there are specific teams inside the org whose only job is to go and finish that last yard of development and stuff. That it's not the job anybody wants to do. It's not the fun stuff. but
Yeah.
they are disciplined on getting that stuff done. I think there's just so many things out there. It takes a while. And I think that we also, their priorities are not always aligned with yours or mine
Yeah.
or particular cut. We all have our own priorities of what we think should be done first. Some are obvious, but some are just going to be personal opinions. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So I got one other pet peeve while we're on pet peeves.
Just follow up on the there on that last session. Martin, he's saying there it gives more convenience for customers to change their business processes. Yep. Andrew's sounds like his industry and he's not in IT. So yeah, it is. It's not like that, you know, the BizApps team are in a unique space here, right? I think the changes in the last 3 years have been phenomenal, and are opening up opportunities for people to enter our industry like never before. But yeah,
enter bravely.
Yeah,
and enter bravely.
So you got another pet peeve, have you?
It's
not like you.
So, and this kind of ties back to this restricted entities deal, right? So we're working on a version of our application that will run on top of the Sales Professional.
Yep.
Which, as you know, is Microsoft's idea of a simple sales app, which is not a simple sales app. It's just a sales app with a bunch of handicaps on it.
Right.
Our app is a simple sales app. So we want to put a version of that sits on top of the Sales Professional. Yep. And utilizes the Sales Professional license so we can use these restricted entities. So our original app has a custom case entity. In this version, we're using the out-of-the-box case entity and trying to make it operate the same way our app does, because we do a lot of things other than just entities and forms to try and make it simpler to use.
Yep.
And here comes this damn customer field. You familiar with the customer field? On case? That's the
can be an account or a contact, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
I don't know of any business where the customer on a case is one or the other. It's always, you know,
a person.
Well, we support people or we support companies, one or the other, but I've never seen a case where they want either one of those. So we used some pre-filtering before to like limit that you can only pick an account there and stuff like that. But you can't delete it. It's a required field. You cannot make it unrequired. Even if you create a lookup to contact and lookup to account on the entity, which is, you know, doing the same thing that thing is doing, you still can't. You still can't make it unrequired. So all these funky machinations behind the scenes to try and get the quick create form in particular to work properly with this stupid customer field hidden because I don't want them to use it.
Yep.
Just a stupid field. I don't know why it exists. It shouldn't exist, in my opinion. There's my pet peeve, the customer polymorphic field. I don't even know about any polymorphic fields. I think they're all a bad idea. I just think it's a bad idea, polymorphics.
Shan MacArthur wouldn't agree with you.
Really? Well, I'll take it up with him. I will ask him about why they think polymorphic fields are so valuable, because I think they just make a mess out of things.
At one MVP summit, this is way back in the day when he was an MVP, not a blue badge.
Right.
Up on the board, every time he said the word polymorphic, he had to take a shot that night, and the list got massively long. And his desire, this is around 2012, 2013, his desire for polymorphic relationships.
A big fan, huh?
Within Dynamics, yeah.
It just confuses things. I like straight lines, you know. I like clear lanes, and polymorphic is this thing that just sits like across multiple lanes, fucking things up. I don't like it. What's your pet peeve? We got 12 minutes left. Give me a pet peeve about.
I don't have any pet peeve. I'm in going towards the end of my 90-day mentoring challenge. So
yes,
people, yesterday was cohort 4. So I got 2 to go in the next 2 weeks. Over 100 people have joined on this round, which is absolutely amazing. But what I am surprised at is just how much people really want a sense of community or find people just like them, even though that concept of community might not be local, could be around the world.
Yeah.
And how it really actually changes people's career directions once they find this community and can find out if you kind of like steps that they can take in their career that nobody else was nobody in their company is talking about, or their managers are not talking about, that type of thing. And
they're like secret clubs.
Yeah, but it's kind of like where the sharing is going on.
Yeah.
Stuff that, is in some ways might be quite benign, but, education is power. And then
it'll be interesting for you to watch, you'll launch these things, you water these seeds, and then, like you say, in the community, they kind of start growing on their own.
Yeah.
Start connecting with one another and adding what you've talked to them about, adding their own thoughts and extending it from there. And I think we definitely have determined that you doing this for free made it 100% abundantly clear you are a way better man than I am, because I would never do it.
I don't know about that, but I saw last weekend in London was I think called Dynamics PowerUp. What do they call it? I think
Power Platform Saturday or something.
Yeah, it was a PowerUp Saturday in London, and my gosh, the community came out in force. Absolutely crazy. That looks like they had a lot of fun, a lot of great sessions.
I saw a lot of photos. Yeah.
Of course, now the focus is turning to Scotland, right? Because the Scottish Summit, which is only the second year they are running this. I was involved in the one last year when I was living up there. And this is the second one. And here's the crazy thing. Over 1,000 people have now registered to attend that event.
That's nuts.
They can't keep taking, they're in a university in Glasgow. It's maxed out, and still more people are wanting to go. Now, this is crazy. 1 year ago, the year before last, so 2018, there was not a single user group in to my knowledge, in the Dynamics Power Platform space in Scotland. There was, when someone said, let's form a community up there, or let's have a user group, everyone said, nah, nobody would be interested. Nobody interested.
And who was it who did? Was that Mark Christie, right?
Mark Christie and Ian Connolly are kind of the two spearhead folks on it.
Yeah,
Claire Carmichael is, I'm pretty sure, on their team as well. Or they haven't been so close to it this time around. But honestly, somebody with a vision, bringing the community together, look what's possible, man. 1,000 people in Scotland in 2 weeks' time, I think it is, are coming together for a Saturday event that will be probably off the Richter scale. It's in Scotland, the home of whiskey, right? So
yep.
You imagine the after parties and stuff that are going to go on there. They're crazy, hospitable people, right? I think I know people are coming in from all over the world to that event. And there's two lads, got together, formed a team around them, and have absolutely knocked the socks off of what's possible in the community. And of course, this is free training for so many folks that are either considering coming in and getting involved in the Power Platform, particularly in Dynamics, Azure, the whole lot they're covering at that event.
That's got to be a record for Microsoft Business Application, Dynamics / Power Platform / any of them. I mean, I don't know, maybe SharePoint has had some, but when you think about a free event, a free educational event, getting that kind of turnout, I can't remember or don't even know of a free event that's gotten anywhere near that.
Mate, if you go to scottishsummit.com and just go through the lineup of speakers, they are from all over the world. The list goes on and on and on. There's a heck of a lot of local speakers, but mate, the amount of Americans I'm seeing in this mix that are attending, the amount of Microsoft FTEs that are speaking at the event.
I was gonna go when they launched a while back. I was gonna try and get, but then for some reason or another, I think schedule wise, I ended up deciding not to. But then, as it turns out, I could have. But then it's a little too late. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, even the crew under the crew section, massive. A phenomenal amount of sponsors, Expo Hall, all this is, I'm just blown away about what those, what they've been able to do in really a 12 to 18 month period of time. So anybody that says, you know, my area is too small or there's no community here, I just go, mate, check out what these guys did. I think it's pretty phenomenal. That event, I mean, even if you couldn't, I reckon if you could get a ticket to get to that event, as in I'm saying, jump on a flight, go there, whatever, just to be part of the buzz and atmosphere and the after parties, etc. around it. If you want a good weekend, mate, I'd be going there.
You're thinking of going to Scotland anyway. There's a great time to go, huh?
Man, unbelievable, unbelievable.
I wonder who will do it next. You know, I mean, those guys set out from the jump to have that be the biggest event.
Yep.
I remember when they first announced it, before they probably had any speakers or anything lined up, they talked about 1,000 people. I mean, they had a goal in mind that, you know, we're not just going to create another little event. We're going to create the biggest fucking event there's been so far.
Exactly.
And, you know, they set that goal and they just kept driving towards, you know, apparently making that happen. You know? So good on them.
Hashtag is SS 2020.
SS 2020.
SS 2020. Oh, I mean, honestly, once again, I'm just blown away how people coming together. They've, you know, nobody's, you know, the people with the financial incentive, I suppose, are the sponsors of all this.
Well,
so,
theoretically, because that's why they would have sponsored, right? You know, they don't sponsor for the goodness of their, you know, their.
No, right? It's exposure.
Yeah, I've talked to different ISVs actually recently. I was talking to one that you and I both know that I won't mention, who was asking me about the value of sponsoring. So I think it was a 365 Saturday coming up here in Tampa, like not this Saturday, maybe the Saturday after this one. I'll have to look because I'm speaking at it, so better make sure I know when it is. And he was asking specifically about the value of advertising at that event because, you know, Tampa. And we don't get a huge number. We're not going to have 1,000 people at this event.
Yeah, why not?
You know, Scotland's got a little advantage in its proximity to, frankly, all of Europe to be able to pull from. You know, we've got Orlando is, you know, 90 miles away. Miami is 5 hours away.
Yeah.
So, and there'll be events in those places. So it's tougher, I think, in some of the U.S. markets because U.S. is just so spread out. And like in Australia, it's just so spread out. You know,
but the population density is phenomenal, right? On the flip side of that you have.
Well, depending on where you are, yeah.
What do you think? Like in New Zealand, we've got, lucky if we've got 4 million people.
Yeah.
Spread out over, you know, a 2-day travel type plan with only one airline, therefore everything's premium priced. In London, it was cheaper for me to fly from London to Stockholm or even Iceland for that matter, than it costs me to fly down to Hamilton in New Zealand, which is a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
Crazy. But that's what population density does, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, Scotland, Ireland, UK, I mean, you can almost, that whole population density is close enough, right? It's a train ride for all of anybody, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
train there from London last year.
Yeah, it's not hard for somebody from the UK to get to the Scottish Summit. You know.
No, I totally agree. But my gosh, what a phenomenal effort for those that, you know, they have a vision, they wanted to achieve something, and they've gone out and just, mate, absolutely executed on it.
Well, and this is right on the heels of, as you said, you know, the one that was in London just recently. They had a great
it's only like 3 weeks separation or something. Yet, you know, what I'm seeing, the talk and the social media chatter and stuff is that it is going to be next level again on that event that just happened in London.
Yeah.
And I mean, London, of course, has got London population density is larger than New York. So you've got I'm surprised that cities like that are not doing massive events like New York as an example. You know, why that event should be absolutely phenomenal size.
Yeah, there was one in New York, and I don't recall. I mean, I think that the guy who decided to, you know, this all has to do with who picks it up and wants to run with it.
Oh, totally. And it's so much work, right? The hours that these fellas have put in is just off the...
Well, and to have it be a success, it takes even more than just checking boxes of work. I mean, you got to be driven to want to have that thing succeed, just like these guys with Scottish kind of set out with this goal, and they were driven to meet it. And
Yeah.
the one I looked at in New York, I didn't really know the guy who was putting it together. He clearly didn't seem like he had the wherewithal and resources to really put something together. So I don't even know if it happened. He picked the wrong time. He put it right on top of something else that everybody wanted to be at. So,
Gotcha.
you know, you really got to do it right.
Man, I'm just going through the faces here of all the speakers. It's just a phenomenal lineup. Just a phenomenal lineup.
But you're not going, right? Because
no, I was meant to be.
Yeah.
Is that before I was leaving, I was going to be doing the lock note, the closeout address at the event. And but with me moving back to New Zealand, that didn't make it practical anymore. So that's not happening.
Yeah, we'll be seeing less of you now that you're on the bottom of the world, right?
Yeah.
We'll be seeing you in Barcelona. We'll be seeing you in Barcelona, and everybody wants to come.
Of course, mate. Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Actually, I've got a panel there. I'm running a panel session, and we're just on time, but on how does an SI transition to becoming an ISV panel discussion.
I'm on your panel, aren't I?
Huh?
I'm on that panel, aren't I?
No.
I'm not on the panel?
You want to come on it?
I transitioned from an ISV or SI to an ISV.
You're on the panel. I've got a, but yeah, anybody else
Show me
that you
the
think
list of your panelists. Show me the list of your panelists, and I'll tell you which one I'll replace.
Oh, I don't have a list yet. Oh, I've got a list up here, but I haven't actually invited the people.
And I wasn't even fucking on it. Jeez.
No, of course not.
On that note, I guess we're going to say goodbye.
All righty. Cheers, mate. We'll see you next week.
See you guys next week.
Ciao. Hang on. Cancel. Whoa.